Everyone. Today's going to be a very useful day. Today is a day that you want to make sure you have your pencil and paper next to you, because I am going to answer one of the most common questions that we are asked at the attack team as regards to DataX, dealing with paths. Before we go into that, I want to thank everyone for coming. I know that we are heading into our summer season. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to hit summer temperatures today. We may even hit 100 degrees. So thank you so much for coming. Just as a constant thing that I always try to make sure I do here, just to remind everyone that DataX is actually an ecosystem. It has a bunch of different components. Although the portal or the Science Gateway itself is the face of DataX itself, we also have the adaptive sensing side and the model integration side. We have, if I go forward here, we have applications that are a part of it. We have systems that are integrated into it, as well as we have custom virtual machines and user front ends, depending upon what your particular project needs. So if you don't see something that you say, yes, that's the thing I've been looking for, don't be afraid to please ask. And of course, some of you all have noticed I've been contacting you directly to see if there's any way I can help your projects. So just to say that one more time, we have our user front ends, a software development platform, which is Jupyter Notebooks, which we're going to talk about today a little bit. Visualization sets. We have our storage systems, which is storage system we're going to look at today is Corral, as well as our model Mint, our publication platform Dolce, virtual machines and custom applications, and then data streaming. And believe it or not, today I'm actually going to use one of the virtual machines that you all actually use without even knowing it. It's kind of a cool thing. Again, just to go over it, to remind you for those of you that are new to this meeting, getting access to PT DataX is a little bit of a process. So we'd like to make sure people are aware of what's going on. The first thing you want to do is to create an account on portal.tac.utexas.edu. One thing that I want to make sure that you're aware of, we have two-factor authentication because we want to keep all our data as secure as possible. Take the time to do the token where you use Duo or any other two-factor software you want to use, so that you can always pull up a code if you need it. Once your account has been made, or if you have an issue there, if you do, of course, let us know. But at that point, you'll need to email either Suzanne Pierce, Anna Dabrowski, or myself, so that we can add you to the DataX project. At that time, you can actually sign into PT DataX, and then we can also assign you to whatever project that you may want to be a part of. All right? At any time, if you have any problems at any of these points, please contact us. The way that we're integrating these multiple systems together, sometimes things can get a little hinky. It can happen. And so we're here to smooth over that process and make it as easy as possible for you. A couple updates I wanted to give you all. So a couple things have happened since the last time we met last month, back in April. The first is, for those of you that have been logging into DataX regularly, you're going to notice inside of data files, there's a new area called data collections. And data collections is a new space that we're adding for curated areas of data with data sets over about 1 terabyte that we realize that a lot of the community may want to use. So be aware that this is an area that is available. And we work with your group directly to provide these areas. And the current use cases are high resolution LiDAR data sets. So you'll be hearing about that as presentations go forward in the future. Also want to put out there that DataX in the classroom is now going to be a thing. Professor G Ma attended our previous session. We had a conversation during and then a follow-up meeting after, where some of these skill sets that we go into during these tutorial sessions, he's actually going to reuse them inside of his course, where he actually teaches those computational skills to students around policy research. So it's a really, really unique use of DataX, and we look forward to that beginning in spring of 2021. I would be remiss if I didn't also remind you that in August we'll be having our Institute, and more information will be coming with that as well. So, down to the nitty-gritty, the things you came for, the reason you need your pen and pencil and paper, or, you know, a plain text note to take notes, is how and where does data live on DataX? This is a question that I've been asked from just about every user that has started using DataX. And the reason for that is because the storage system corral, which is the answer, is this amorphous set of blinking lights that are inside of the data center. And in order to connect to that in the many different ways, from the applications to the systems to even outside resources, there's a lot of coding and security measures that are put in place that makes it a little bit interesting sometimes. And so I want to make sure we go into them. And we're going to do that by first showing you how to transfer data of Globus. A lot of this is a very common question. Second, analyzing data using Jupyter Notebooks. And even though we click on Jupyter Notebooks inside of DataX, what we're actually doing is going to an instance of jupyter.tac.cloud. And the file system is a little bit different there. So I wanted to show you that. And then lastly, for my hardcore users, which all of you all will be one day, even if you aren't now, is how it looks on the command line if we were to submit a job to Stampede 2, right? So let's get into it. So I'm going to stop my share here. And I am going to reopen it with the proper window opened. Pardon me while I pull this up. There we go. Let's exit out of full screen mode. There we go. Now it showed back up. Okay, let's share this back out. Again, if there are any questions, please let me know. You can, of course, either use the Zoom functions to raise your hand. I am going to open the chat box so I can also see there. And at any time, please stop me. I'm not here to talk at you. I'm here to talk with you to help you. So, all right. So let us start by going to DataX itself. And actually, I was already there. I'll just scroll up. So when you go to ptdatax.tac.utexas.edu, this is the screen you're presented with. Now, assuming you already have your TAC portal account all set to go, and we have added you to the DataX project, either Suzanne, Anna, or myself, or Daniel, Hardesty Lewis, DHL, you could then log in. And as you can see, I am already signed in. So I'm going to go there and go to my dashboard. And the area we are most interested in today is this area called data files. Inside of data files, of course, you pop into my data. Now this my data area, for those of you that are taking notes, this my data area is actually on the systems, the work area /work. On all the systems, work is our common file system. So when I say systems, I'm talking about all of our supercomputers and clusters. That's Stampede 2, Frontera, Lone Star 5, on down the line. /work is our shared file system. And that's what you're looking at when you click on My Data. But when you go into My Projects, you're actually on a different system. Now, I just clicked the button, but what I've actually done in data center terms is I've gone from one side of the building to the other, and now I'm on this storage system called Corral. And inside of Corral, that's where our projects are held. So in the case of Upstream, now I'm sitting inside of Corral, and I can see my files. Now, if I were to click on this, this is actually a Jupyter Notebook file. Jupyter Notebook, for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a developmental platform where you can create interactive documents using Python, R, and other programming sources as well. And so when I click on it, it'll give me a preview of that file. And we'll give it a moment to process here. Again, it's an interactive sheet, so sometimes it takes a moment. And while that is loading, and there we go, we're actually going to go into this file here in a moment. But what I want you to notice is here at the top, it says Agave URI. So it's saying the Agave path for this is PT 2050 project.pt2050-82/datax paths. This path only matters on the website, on this main website. Generally speaking, none of you will ever use this. Now let's make you a little bit more in tune with what's going on. Let's go to Globus. We're going to transfer a file in here. Now, again, I know that I'm in PT 2050-82 in the project section. Now, I've already logged in, but what I've done is I've gone to the website, globus.org, globus.org. If you're looking for more information on Globus, back on PT Data X, you have the Globus Data Transfer Guide. I actually followed that to set this up, but I'm in globus.org and I signed in with my account. Now, in my account, I actually have the ability, once I install some software, again, this is in the Globus Transfer Guide, to select my computer. So this is my personal computer, and I have a Mac for reference. I can go to desktop, and sitting on my desktop, I have a lovely little file from a little sensor that I'm working on, where I have some data there in a CSV. So a comma separated value machine. So this is just a quick little data set. And actually, if I go over on my desktop, I can open it for you. But I'd have to change the share. And then over on the other side, I can actually select one of our computers. Now, in your case, what you're going to do in this collection, especially if this is your first time, again, this is one of those things you want to make a note of. When you want to transfer data to Corral, you type in Corral, and this particular connection will appear. So this is TAC Corral 3 with CI login authentication. Now, as Murphy's Law dictates, whenever you're going to do a live presentation, something has to go wrong. In my case, my certificate expired right before this meeting started. And they're actually taking care of that as we speak. But you would normally see your area there. Now for me, in my case, I'm going to select Stampede 2 just so that you can get an idea of what this looks like. Now, when you select your particular section, your main directory is going to come up. Now for me, this is my home directory on Stampede 2, which we're going to see a little bit later. But if I back up, I can actually go to other places, like Corel REPL, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. So if I wanted to send the file, I'm just going to go back to my main directory just so that I can do it. I'm going to prep this for later. I'm going to grab my little file here from my computer, my little Pi output file, and I'm going to put it over here by hitting the button Start. Once I select it again. There we go. Start. And what that process does is it's taking the file from my computer and transferring it through the internet using the Globus service and putting it, in this case, on Stampede 2. Let's go to a little bit of a different one. Let's go to Jupyter. Now, the way you get to Jupyter from PT Data X is you actually use the Applications button and then go to Data Processing, and then you have Jupyter here. And when you click on Jupyter, it brings you to this page. I'm actually going to back up a step. I'm also going to stop them from sending me messages about the certificate being gone. And you'll notice that you have a file here called PT 2050 projects, as well as TAC work. Under PT 2050 projects, remember my project is PT 2050-82 for upstream. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and have a set of files here. So these are the same files that I saw back on the main area. So if I go back to PT Data X, I go to Data Files, My Projects, PT 250-82, which is upstream. And actually, let me make this a little bit larger. You see I have a set of files here. We have one here called SC19-Hackathon. If I go back to Jupyter Notebooks, you'll see I have SC19-Hackathon. So you can see the connection there between the two. In my case, I'm going to open that Jupyter Notebook file, that DataX path site. And I've actually already done that, so I'll just click over to it. And it just opens our file. But now here's where things get weird. Here's one of those times where you need to make a note. In Linux, we have a command called print working directory, PWD, print working directory. And when I run that command, it shows me that the working directory, the area that I am in right now, this is also can be akin to if I'm on Mac, I click on Finder window, or I click on the hard drive and it shows the window. Or in Windows, I go to Explorer and it shows what's there. PWD does that. And this is where we are. It says we're in /home/Jupyter/PT 2050-projects-PT 2050-82. Here's the note that you need to make to yourself. This is the important thing. This directory, this what we call when we say it in systems administration terms, this file path only exists in this form inside Jupyter Notebooks. Let me say that again. This path /home/Jupyter/PT 2050 projects/PT 2050-82, this beginning part, /home/Jupyter, only exists in this notebook. If I were to go to Stampede 2 and type this very same thing, these files that are listed here would not be there. This is the part, this is why people have been getting confused about this, and this is why it's so essential that we go over this. The actual path on other systems, so if you went to Stampede 2, if you went to Lone Star 5, if you went to Frontera, is this /corral /corral-REPL/TAC/ACI, and then it starts to sound familiar, /PT 2050/projects, and I can go into /PT 2050-82. But there's a problem. What if that's the real path? Can I use that real path in my code so that I don't have to worry about that. That would be a wonderful thing, but unfortunately, no. Um, in previous sessions, I've talked about how we're going to have, there's going to be a change with Jupyter Notebooks coming soon, where you're going to be able to run Jupyter Notebooks on the systems themselves. This is one of the reasons why. When we open Jupyter Notebooks, so this is pulling the curtain back. This is just for your personal knowledge. This is not to confuse you at all. But when we're running Jupyter Notebooks, we're actually running on a machine called Chameleon. So it's another machine that's inside of our data center, but it's specifically made for services like this, where Jupyter is running on the web as opposed to running somewhere with a command line. And in order to do that, to try to find that balance, to be able to present something in the web, save data to a real storage area on site, and then have the ability to communicate between all those things, there's some weirdness that happens. And that's what you're seeing. That's why this is a little bit frustrating. I hope that makes sense. It is something that the team is working on, but for right now, this is what we have. So to recap there, in Jupyter, this path where you actually exist inside of Jupyter Notebooks only exists inside of Jupyter Notebooks. I can even say more specifically, only exists in this instance that has been started up on Corral of Jupyter Notebooks that you're using. If you want to take any code that you've written in Jupyter Notebooks and then transition it over to one of the larger systems like Stampede 2 or Lone Star 5 or Frontera, you need to use the full path, which is down here. And like it got, once again, you want to make sure that you make a note to yourself that that full path is /corral/repl/tac/ACI/PT2050/projects. And don't worry, we're going to go to that here again in a moment on actual Stampede 2. Before I go further, let me stop for a moment because I see the creases of concern. So please ask your question. Everybody okay? I don't think you are, but you might not know what question to ask. Okay. All right.
I'm going to speak up. While you were talking, my computer froze. I was just trying to do screenshots as opposed to taking notes.
Okay.
And oh goodness, where did I go?
Here, I'll scroll up.
Do you even see me? Oh, there we go.
I see the bridge of the Enterprise.
Wow.
Next generation.
There I am. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm on a Dell instead of my Mac, and the camera's down at my chin. Anyway, so what you've done is stuff that matters to me, but it was a little too, I missed the part where you were earlier on, where you were using Globus to transfer.
Okay.
And so sometime I want to get back with you on that. But aside from that, I just say this is a little confusing, but I'm back on, and I think I follow so far.
Not a problem. I think what I'm going to do is just like we have a document for Globus up at the top, we're going to create a document just like that for these file system paths, because it is a little bit, I fully admit, even myself, I was working with DHL, and we started asking these questions that are necessary for us to be able to transition between Jupyter and a real system. And these issues started showing up. And that's how I found out about the differences. And that's how we were able to start the conversation.
Well, we tried copying some scripts or using scripts that were created in Stampede in Jupyter, and we couldn't even find the scripts. So
exactly.
It was weird. But the other thing I wanted to just throw out there was that you mentioned earlier on the data collections that you show under data files.
Yes.
And I see some repetition there, TNRIS DEMS, LiDAR DM. There's 3 folders that look repetitious.
Yes,
So,
and I see where you're going with yours. David has actually has one of our first data collections, and yours are actually in a very special place.
okay.
So that's why you don't see them listed there. So that's why yours are a little bit different. That data is actually from another researcher that's also using LiDAR data.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But don't worry, once yours has kind of settled down and you know.
Oh, so ours are not in that set of
Data
collections.
not just yet, but soon.
That's right. No, I thought that maybe that was some source data from TNRIS that we could copy from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No,
Okay.
yours will be joining soon.
Okay.
So for those of you that aren't aware, we have several researchers that are using LiDAR data. David actually has the largest data set, which is why his is a little bit more interesting, where they have over 23 terabytes of data, which is a lot of data, which means we have to be very careful about where we put it. The data set that you were looking at was only about 5 terabytes. So we were able to comfortably put it where we need it. All right.
Okay, that's it.
So moving on. I wanted to show you the bottom of this code, because what I actually did is something that I did the opposite of what David just said. I actually, after I created this, I went to File and I went to Download as .py and transferred it over to Stampede 2, which we're going to see here in a moment. But all my code does is it tells us where we are, does the ls, it lists the files that are there, it lists the files in the directory prior to it, then it checks it against the full path, says who's using it, so it has my user ID. And then down here, I have a little bit of code that I'll be putting out a little bit later of methods that I'm using chords to take a full data set from chords, download it. It saves it into what's called a data frame. So if you're familiar with Python at all, Pandas is a very common platform that's used for working with large sets of data. It's very efficient and very common. And then I did a weather.describe, which just gives some basic descriptions, statistical descriptions of the data set itself. So in this case, there are 142,858 samples in this particular set. Then we save it to a CSV file, tacweather.csv, and then it does a ls. So having said that, let's go away from the beautiful graphical user interface and let's go to the a little bit more intimidating command line screen. So I'm going to open that up here. So the part of this that you have missed, you go ahead and let's minimize you. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So the part that I didn't do live is I logged into Stampede 2. So I opened a terminal on my Mac, SSH to my username at stampede2.tac.utexas.edu. And I am sitting in my home directory. Now I'm going to clear my screen. And I'm just going to prove where I am. I'm going to use a command called hostname just to show you where I am. So I'm on login1.stampede2.tac.utexas.edu. Now, taking you back to Globus, I transferred a file to Stampede 2. There's a file called pi_output_64.csv. So I'm going to see if that file got here. So you don't have to see all my files. I'm just going to grep for CSVs. And sure enough, pi output 64, just to prove that I didn't put this up and say, oh yeah, it's there. It gives us the date of May 19th, 11:21 a.m. And of course, if I do date again, you can see it is May 19th, 11:36. So that indeed is the file that I put up there. So I just want to show you that that file did transfer over. But now, let's take some of the lessons we learned. And let's think about if I wanted to get to the area on Corral where my project files are located. Now, we talked about that location is slash Corral REPL, ACI, and it goes on down in there. So let's actually go there and see it. And I'm going to cheat just a little bit because I want to make sure I go to the right location as well, because it is deep down in the file system. So here we go. I'm going to change directory, CD, for those of you that don't use Linux. CD just means I want to change directory or go to a location, and the location is the following, /Corral REPL. So that's Corral replication, so on the Corral system, TAC /ACI /PT 2050 /projects. Let's do LS. And there are a lot of projects in there. Not a problem, Dave. Okay, you already had me as the host, so I'm good to go. All right, thank you, Dave. Now, my directory, like I said, is PT 2050-82. So let's go in there, CD PT 2050-82. Now let's take a look in there. Those files should look just a little bit familiar. So I specifically pointed out that SC19-hackathon directory looks familiar. That datax paths.ipynb, that is that file that we're looking at. Matter of fact, if I take a look at the beginning of it, you can see paths in datax and Jupyter Notebooks versus on Stampede 2. So that's the heading. So that lets us know that it's that very same file. So we indeed are in the same location. Let's do something else. Now, because I'm doing this live, I'm quite sure that I'm going to make a mistake, but we're going to give it a shot. I have actually created a file, so I'm going to clear this out so you can kind of see what's going on. Let's assume that my Jupyter Notebook file was this amazingly complex Jupyter Notebook file, like one of the ones DHL would make that actually go out and change the world, as opposed to, you know, a quick, easy one. So I have actually put that file, I transferred that file over, and the name of that file is datax paths. So again, if I take a look in it, I'm just going to hop in there. This looks a little bit familiar, but there's a catch. There were some slight changes that I had to make in order for my code to work. One of the main ones is you're going to see this right, this os.system. That was previously ipython.system when I did a direct export. In IPython, so in Jupyter Notebooks, that supports the things I was trying to do, but in Python terms, I needed to use import.os. So quick little, so side tip, if you do a direct export from a Jupyter Notebook file and those ipython.system calls are there, you need to change them from IPython to OS and also add import OS, the library. Again, if you're not a coder, this is just some supplementary information. As you start to get into it, these things will make a little bit more sense. All right, so really basic, it's there. It's almost a direct export, but not quite. And of course, David Octor can attest to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and escape out of here. Now, in order to submit a job, this is going into the high performance computing side. If you've never done this before, this may look like Greek, but I'll try to explain it a little bit. And of course, we do have user guides as well for every last one of our system with template and example code to help you out with this. But I have a file here that I use quite often. I made it one time and then I just modify it all the time. That is a submission script. So it actually submits jobs for me. And I believe it is this one. Yes, it is. My example submission.bash. I'm going to actually go into it here. So you're going to get some free information here that usually comes with either our Exceed classes or our HPC, Introduction to HPC classes. This submission script up at the top, all of these items that have this hash or pound with SBatch means that these commands are for our job scheduler. So the software that actually takes in information and then sends it out to one of our or multiple of our thousands of nodes out there. And it gives specific information to them, like job name. In this case, I named it chords2job. The output file is going to come out as chords2job.o for output, and then the job number, the number of nodes I want, the queue I want to run in, how long I want it to run, an email that I'd like to receive both when it begins and when it ends. And then we go to some normal things. Add the date of when I want to run the Linux command date to see what time it ran, PWD, where it is when it's running, the host name, which computer I landed on, who's running it, which should be me, unless something else is wrong. The module I loaded to run Python 3, which modules are loaded. I installed some of the needed libraries just in case. And then I actually run my script. So mine is a little bit more complicated than normal, but it's just because I like to have extra information out there. So I'm going to go ahead and exit that. And the way we submit a job to Stampede2 is we use the command sbatch and then our submission script. Now, I am likely going to get an error. I am planning on getting an error. But let's see. Sure enough, because I need to pick my project. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, -A. And let's use, oh, I don't know, PT 2050 -data X. And actually I need to put it on the other side, otherwise it's going to complain. Let's do that, -A, PT 2050 -data X. And go. Now it's available. My job is submitted. I'm going to check on my job using a command called sq with my username so I don't see them all. And it's running currently. And should be completing very soon. All right, so it's pulling that data in. Just to let you know, for those of you that always wonder how busy is Stampede2, if I just do SQ, quite busy. Or if I do sinfo, which is one of the commands I use, you can see right now there are, of just the Skylakes, 1,687 allocated nodes. It's pretty crazy. All right, let's see if our job has finished here. It is in CG, which means completing. So the way I know that what it's doing, if you see that ST stands for state. And then the status underneath it is what lets me know. So it was in, what you didn't see is when I initially submitted it, it said PD for pending. When it was running, it changed to R. And now that it's completing, it says CG. And notice that my job ID is 5718103. So let's see if it's done. It's done. So let's take a look now. So my job number is 5718103, which is right here, chords2job. And let's take a look at what's in it. Chords2job 057181103. So if you remember my script, first thing I had on it was date. There's a date. Then I had PWD. There it is, home1 04859. Host name, that's where it actually ran from. Ooh, excuse me. Loading the module. The current module is loaded. the installation, and then the output from the LS, which I have quite a few. And I had an error because I did not complete installing the library. However, in general, this is how it works. At this point, I would start troubleshooting, of course, to get the code to work correctly. But this, generally speaking, is how your scripts would work. So let's do a quick recap, because I just said a lot of different things. I am going to switch back over to my screen here. There we go. So before I do the recap, the first thing I want to say is we have the ability, and not just do we have the ability, but we also have the want to talk with you all directly to help you with your projects. I'm doing something very general just to give you an idea of how the workflow might work. Your workflow may be very, very different. Ask us. We'll be glad to sit down with you or your team to figure out what will work best for you. So just doing a quick overview. For transferring files, we want to use Globus, so globus.org. Instructions for using globus.org are on the PT DataX website, right up at the top. It gives you all the information you need in order to transfer files back and forth. And this is designed, this is the big thing is, this is designed for large files. Anything over about a gig, HTTP requests, so in other words, regular websites don't like to send. They start to time out, you start to have issues, and you've probably noticed that as you've downloaded things over the years. Globus is designed to handle those issues. If you have to send a terabyte of data or 500 gigs or quite a bit of data, Globus is a tool you want to use, especially if you're not comfortable with the command line. And even if you are, Globus takes care of errors and things like that as well. Not to mention, it's great to receive emails to let you know that your transfer is complete. Not to mention a graphical interface. The next thing, Jupyter. Jupyter has a different file system from what's on the big systems. And we saw that up at the top when we did our PWD, our home / Jupyter PT 2050 projects, PT 82. This is the only place that path ever existed. You never saw that again. So if you're going to transition from Jupyter over to command line where you're actually working directly on Stampede 2, you're going to want to use this full path, that /corral /repl /tac /ACI /PT 2050 /projects, and then your project. If you want to use one within communities, you just change this from projects to community. And you can actually see the locations in there as well. Of course, I don't have access to community, but that is there as well. And the last thing is, when you do make that transition over to command line, if you've never used HPC resources, please feel free to give us a call or give us an email so that we can set up an appointment to assist you. We have specialists, we have HPC specialists, and this is all they do. David has actually been really fortunate to work with a few of them, as well as other researchers. We're here to help. And as you see, even though I do this all the time, issues arise. This is not an out of the box process. This is a DIY. Sometimes you need to figure out some things in order to get it to work. And we don't want you to hit those frustrations alone. We're here to help you.